call the kidney Little Johnny.
And little Johnny is thriving. It was only 4 months ago when Linda Thompson was on a waiting list for a kidney transplant.
With no end in sight until we went to brunch that morning.
That's where Thompson met John and Wendy Wickham, the group sharing a table in a crowded restaurant. A chance encounter between strangers, two with the same rare blood type. By the end of the meal, John Wickham was ready to apply to be a donor.
I submitted at 6 a.m. and at 6:05 they were on the phone.
On July 26, one of Wickham's kidneys was removed and placed in Thompson, her body accepting it. Prior to the procedure, Thompson was undergoing dialysis for 4 hours a day, 3 days a week.
So this is all the scars from all the needles, and you can actually see it pumping.
Yeah.
That's the access point to the machine she no longer needs. A holiday weekend hangout under the I-10 bridge quickly turned to terror when 3 teenage girls drove right into the Pascagoula River.
They drove straight under the water. Only a little bit of the car was still above the water.
16-year-old Corian Evans from Pascagoula tossed his shoes, shirt, phone, and jumped in.
I was just like, I can't let none of these folks die, so I just started getting them.
Along with Moss Point police officer Gary Mercer.
I turn around, I see the police officer going underwater drowning, saying help. So I went over there, and I'm like swimming him back until I could walk.
I'm glad nothing happened to him while he was trying to save other people's lives. I was really proud.
Marquita Evans now praising her son. Chief Brandon Ashley releasing this statement saying in part, "We commend Evans's bravery."
They was out there throwing up because a lot of water had got inside all of them. Anything could have been in that water though, but I wasn't thinking about it.
She was in the back seat as the vehicle sank about 20 feet out, the 3 escaping from the passenger window.
Everything was just pitch black. The GPS thought we was on top of the interstate.
Weighing in at about half a pound of cast iron, this object fell from the sky Monday night, striking a Gaucher woman. With a new shrimp season starting Monday, fishermen are setting sail with hope.
Fuel prices went up, the shrimp went down.
While shrimp may be fleeting, experts say they haven't had an oyster season in over 5 years. For Darlene Kemble, her tool to unload them has been immobile and rusting as she fights to keep Kemble's Seafood afloat after nearly a century in business.
We used to have a bunch of employees, my grandfather, my grandmother. I run it by myself, and I don't know if I'm gonna let my little girl take this over. It is kind of dying.
It's a similar story for Jeremy Fort with Jerry Fort Seafood, his dad's business since the early 1970s.
My goal was to always try to kind of carry it on, but being that things have changed so much.
Fort says his biggest struggle is competing with imports.
We're facing more and more hardship than ever before.
Mardi Gras being their busiest time of year, about 5 separate suppliers are arriving daily with loads of crawfish. Bands marching, beads flying, and royalty floating.
Hello.
The GCCA parade is back. Not every Mardi Gras throw was a keepsake. Drivers now dodging with the parade left behind.
My first thoughts was they had a good time.
As Jeep after Jeep sank into the sand, the brand enthusiasts banding together.
Everybody just gets together, sits on the beach, tries to help other people.
It's not Jeep in the coast unless you have one leg that's burnt.
He's been racing for 16 years and is a 6-time winner of the Baja 1000. But this week, you can be in his passenger seat. Fur grew up in Gulfport and returned after about 50 years away. Her father, Richard Hart, was police chief during the civil rights era, recruiting the department's first ever black officers.
They didn't know what reaction the coast was going to have, but it was essential.
He believes branching out now to the cannabis plant is right up his alley. Mayor Mike Smith is a cancer survivor himself, and he says if dispensaries are to open up in Hancock County, he wants the city of Waveland to be the first.
It gives you that appetite. It takes the nausea away. It takes the pain away.
Traffic in Moss Point is backed Wednesday, with Jackson County residents lining the streets for free meals.
When we run out, but we feed a lot of families, and they are happy.
Community members in need now enjoying both a gathering spot and mealtime. Health science students are spreading love throughout Summerfield Senior Living. Inside these boxes are book bags and school supplies, going to kindergartners across the coast. Residents wading through several feet of flooding water.
We thought it was just going to be a regular little wind and rain, but it's a lot more rain than wind right now.
We've answered calls on Frederick Street, Peyton Street, Pine Street, Rose Drive.
Beth Riley lives further down on Rose Drive, what neighbors are calling the deep end. But it's not the first time, waking up to a similar scene following Katrina.
Yes, we did the same thing. She was on my back, like she's on her back, same time.
Drivers in Pascagoula found the roadways engulfed with water and some vehicles flooded.
Just killed my whole truck.
It started sucking in water, smoking, and turned off. So hopefully I can save my car because I don't know what I'm going to do without it.
And though a bit unprepared, he was ready to lend a hand. This was a bond forged after Hurricane Katrina during the recovery efforts.
I helped her grandparents rebuild their house in Katrina.
He's referring to Savina Walker. She's lived here over 3 decades. She was right here at home when the tornado struck.
I ran and covered my son that was in bed.
Among roof, flooring, and window repairs, her teenage son's handicap ramp was one of the first items restored.
They're getting us to the point where we can actually come home.
Nail by nail, board by board, this demolished home is coming back together.
We want to restore this home, and when people drive by, they can see a sense of hope.
Putting in the work, despite the scorching heat wave blanketing Ground Zero.
The heat is bearable because the need is greater than the heat.
The Trident Foundation is serving up burgers and hot dogs for first responders on day 4.
That's what will get us through it, is a community coming together.
With crews on the ground, MEMA Director Stephen McCraney says their first initial assessment of the area should be complete by Friday. More than 2 weeks have passed since the EF2 tore through. Mayor Billy Knight says the city is still waiting for answers from MEMA and FEMA regarding any state or federal funding.
We are dealing with 60 major and destroyed residences. We think there may be only 5 insured.
It's not things we need as much as it is labor.
She says they need chainsaw operators, licensed roofers, and others willing to volunteer their trade skills to make a difference.
If a tarp isn't put on correctly originally, in some cases we're even having to do the same roof a couple times.
Several disaster response teams have deployed to Moss Point since the tornado hit, but some say there aren't enough.
For us to go into an area like that and not see all of the support when that's typically what we see, we knew something was up.
The River City still in need of boots on the ground.
There's no federal funding. There's no state funding at this point. There's no county funding. There's no local city funding available, and it comes down to volunteers.
Volunteers willing and ready to roll up their sleeves.
They're not getting the help they're supposed to be getting. Right. Somebody just needs to hear these people.
They call it the post-deployment blues. A lot of us do it just to feel wanted.
Collective Church is partnering with Convoy of Hope and Mercy Chefs to distribute a tractor-trailer load of supplies to residents.
I lost a lot of stuff, the little bit that I did have, and kind of struggling.
They've seen about 400 vehicles pass through for pickup in 3 hours. Executive Director David Leon says they plan to provide meals for shelters that will be open as cold temperatures and single-digit wind chills blanket the coast.
This is something we don't hardly ever get down here. You're talking about hundreds of homeless people.
In some of the hardest hit areas, recovery and relief are underway Tuesday, on the ground and even from about 700 miles away.
The advances in technology, especially in Red Cross, are phenomenal. I can see exactly what's going on, how many people are on the ground, how many homes are impacted, what they look like.
The chapter here has not deployed any personnel to any of those states impacted by the tornadoes, but volunteers here are still working around the clock virtually.
It's over with.
The standoff lasted for more than 3 hours after a triple murder in Biloxi, another deadly shooting in Gulfport, and a high-speed chase.
I'm near the road and all I see is car just like he could have hit me how close he was.
Multiple agencies, including a SWAT team, arriving to Canal Grocery as the gunman barricaded himself inside.
We shooting 7.62, and that's a powerful gun. It was like, yeah, it'll shoot through the brick wall. Y'all just get behind the bricks.
Police blocked Canal Road, trying to keep bystanders safe.
We always go to the store down there. We could have been one of the people, held hostage.
You can see the hostages where they're running out.
2 people were inside the store when the gunman showed up.
It did appear that one of them was assaulted.
Police tried negotiating with the suspect. They used high-tech gear and then tear gas. With no response, they entered to find a fire burning and the suspect dead inside. 32-year-old Jeremy Alexander Reynolds from Biloxi. Gulfport Police Chief Adam Cooper says it was a collaborative effort that brought the terror to an end.
If my kids had been laying a certain way on the bed, my children would have gotten hit.
It was a Ring doorbell capturing major evidence in this case. According to Gulfport police, one person fired a rifle in the direction of a group of people. In that group, returning fire. One man was reportedly shot 3 times but survived. Not as fortunate, though, was his 24-year-old niece asleep in the apartment above, Maria Perkins. Her mother was there repairing a TV when it happened.
She was grabbing my hand. She kept saying, "Mom, I'm cold. Mom, cold."
With a mother's intuition, Roxy Perkins says she felt her daughter was gone before she even made it to the hospital.
They told me, and it broke my heart. I couldn't even hold my baby.
Despite several possible witnesses at the scene, Gulfport police say leads are lacking.
I was so close because I thought it was here. I thought it was our house.
During our interview with Sharmanita Simmons and Corey Salter right next door, we discovered their house was hit as well. A bullet found just feet away from where they say they were sitting at that very moment.
There, watching TV on the other side of the wall. That's all we heard.
After Pastor Gary Johnson worked to clean his place of worship, he's now filing a second police report. He returned to his sanctuary Thursday to find at least 10 bullet holes through the glass windows. The door locks busted, inside trashed, instruments destroyed, an attempted fire in the bathroom, and markings branding the hit.
I don't have my keys. Where are my keys?
Retracing her steps to the parking lot, Thompson soon realized her car was missing as well. The single mother of 2 says it was full of her kids' Christmas gifts. This surveillance video captures one man reportedly swiping catalytic converters from several vehicles in the area. Police are still searching for the suspect. Leaders say the new legislation raises the fine for the crime. The jury finds Fred McNaughton guilty of second-degree murder. Judge Kathy King Jackson sentencing McNaughton to 40 years in prison without parole, but not before sitting through emotional victim impact statements. District Attorney Angel Myers-Mickelrath says in part, the jury saw the truth despite the defendant's efforts to gaslight them. Nina had a voice in the courtroom, and justice was delivered.
I feel like we got the best possible case.
We've spent many nights here.
Dorothy Satterley's family members own the house. Now one of her relatives is charged with setting it to blaze. Stone has lived in Moss Point all his life, right behind Orange Lake Elementary School.
I had 6 brothers and sisters, and we all went there. You can see we walked there.
He says he thinks the fire started in the west wing of the building. Within minutes, he and many others stood watching the old structure from their childhood burn. This was the scene at about 10 o'clock Sunday night. Fierce flames forcing one man to jump out of the shower and straight through a 3rd-story glass window to escape.
He said, "I'm scratched up, but I'm naked."
Neighbors pouring in with video Saturday as flames grow right next door.
You could look right over there above the house where it was totally orange.
Now the fire is out for the most part, but there's still some pockets smoldering. I spoke with another resident off camera who says she had to use her own water hose to protect her home. Blue lights and fire lighting the Monday night sky. Nicholson volunteer firefighters had no trouble finding the address. It's their own firehouse engulfed by the blaze. 5 neighboring agencies rushed in for backup. By Tuesday morning, it could take up to 90 to 100 days to have all of this equipment replaced. Firefighters stepping through the remains of this home on Bethel Road. It was the first fire of the night, happening around 11 Tuesday. Gulfport fire officials say it was an electrical outlet overloaded by a space heater that caused the blaze Monday night. On Tuesday,
Trying to get things squared away.
Gulfport native and former Nebraska football quarterback Tommy Armstrong Jr. sprang into action to save Brown's daughter.
I just started grabbing bricks and throwing it through the window.
Investigators and inspectors are still searching for answers. Luckily, no one was home when the flames overtook the property. This was their niece Danielle Breland's room.
I would go over here, she would take care of me.
Colonel Laura King is commander of the 81st Training Group, where she says they produce about 6,000 cyber professionals each year. The new Mississippi Cyber Center is officially online. 1 creative idea, 2 squadrons teamwork, and 3D printing.
It was a game changer.
Dr. Jason Hayes is the medical director of radiation oncology. He treats about 110 patients with radiation every year, but he says those treatments have only been about 90% effective.
That's not perfect, and even if we tape this down, there's air gaps between the skin.
He took this to the 81st Dental Squadron.
I can make any kind of shape, any kind of surface.
With his software typically used to produce teeth, he's now developing custom-made devices for each patient, all starting with a digital scan. This towering structure, over 200 feet tall, is NASA's A2 test stand at the Stennis Space Center, originally built back in the 60s for the Apollo program. Now Stennis is handing the keys over to its largest commercial tenant, the 3D rocket printing company Relativity Space. place.
We're just thrilled about building on the history that they've started and making that a part of our future.
This ceremonial welding marks the foundation of Ingalls' new guided missile destroyer for the U.S. Navy, the USS Ted Stevens.
The Arleigh destroyers are the do-all of the Navy.
Inviva is now the world's largest producer of industrial-grade wood pellets, a renewable and sustainable energy source for utility customers across the globe.
While this is the first shipment, it represents many more to come.
X-ray and radiology devices scan shipments entering the U.S. Port workers here will examine the images rather than the entire containers. That means quicker inspections and faster deliveries to your grocery stores. The opening of the Roger F. Wicker Center for Ocean Enterprise draws a crowd Friday, the facility dedicated to oceanic research and marine innovation.
The last unexplored frontier is actually the bottom of the seas.
This is Carl in ROV Nav.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're ready to do a photogrammetry pass.
More than 2 centuries old, 64 feet long, and resting on the sea floor.
Was the industry. It was the only whaling ship that was lost in the Gulf.
All of the wood is deteriorated away, but this is the wreck.
It's located about 100 miles from the coast here in Pascagoula and 6,000 feet below sea level. Now, not many entities in the world can access this location, so researchers are not looking to bring anything up from this site. Dr. James Delgado is the Senior Vice President of Search Incorporated. He's worked on several shipwrecks from Pearl Harbor to the Titanic, and now the industry.
As you find and as you work, the light comes on and there you are being exposed to a story that perhaps you didn't even know had been written.
Research shows it was manned by an African and Native American crew just years leading up to the Civil War.
To land up on shore, they could be in a very tough jurisdiction.
Our scientists were able to take the ship out, put our remotely operated vehicle over the side, survey this wreck with 21st century technology, which we're growing in spades here in Mississippi, and add the story of the industry back to the story of the Gulf Coast.
Despite signage like this, the issue continues. Our reports show more than 20 vehicles stuck here on the tracks in 4 years, leading up to the 2017 tragedy. The CSX train crashing into a stuck charter bus, sending 35 people to the hospital and killing 4. Now crews are set, ready to alleviate the steep crossing by replacing what's there with a new grade. John Major with the city says they were designing this upgrade even before the 2017 crash.
It's a danger.
The driving of these golden spikes, marking the moment the Mississippi Export Railroad in Lucedale is ready to go. It all came together through grants, not costing taxpayers a dime. Married drivers Janita Henry and Lenitra Hornsby say they take turns behind the wheel, from one coast to the next. But when they get here,
For big trucks, it makes it kind of difficult.
it's a 4-lane stretch for now, 2 headed east, 2 headed west, and traveled by about 50,000 people every day.
It'll bottleneck and traffic will jam up and you can't get anywhere.
With this mega grant, state crews will widen the roadway to 6 lanes total. Biloxi's new boat launches across from the Treasure Bay Casino are now afloat. It was a collaborative effort between local and state leaders. The area features 2 boat launches with a 40-space parking lot for cars, trucks, and trailers.
There's actually 7,600 boat owners in Harrison County. They got to put them over.
This is what Hurricanes Zeta and Ida left behind in Gulfport. All piers pending repairs. Driving up, you'll see several fishermen now working around it.
It really does cut the lines and it hurts animals and stuff.
We would love to come out here and begin work on these things, but disaster relief through FEMA has processes and approvals that we have to go through.
FEMA releasing this statement to WLOX saying in part, FEMA and MEMA are working with the city and county to clarify requirements and move projects along.
The beach is incredible and I wish I could walk on there because it would be real cool.
City leaders say the process is taking longer because they're requesting to build back stronger with concrete piling and flow-through decking like this to withstand storms to come. Lauren survived to tell her story.
I've told him thank you like a million times.
This bond formed during one of the most traumatic moments, but one also made to last. That's Lauren Lawless and Waveland Police Sergeant Troy Bordelon, an officer who found her shot down on the scene and remained by her side. Lauren spent 4 days in the ICU. On the bullet's way right through her, she suffered 2 broken ribs, as well as nerve damage in her left leg.
Think about it. So it's only been like 2 weeks and I'm already doing this good. Think about like 4 weeks. It's going to be like 2 times better.
But she insists she wouldn't be here today without her newfound friend in blue.
Y'all are shown in such a negative light. Y'all aren't the stereotype everybody makes you out to be. Y'all actually save people. Y'all save me.
That's what we signed up to do.
Were you on this ship here?
Yes, the big one there.
More than 8 decades after the attack on Pearl Harbor, survivor Frank Emond is recounting it all. It's a designation no family wishes for, the Gold Star status. These are the immediate loved ones of our fallen military members serving in action, like Dawn Moore. Until Wednesday, there's never been a nationally recognized holiday honoring their children, and that's something Moore would fight years to have acknowledged.
Sometimes it takes a warrior's strength and then to realize, wait a minute, I have the warrior's blood.
Football fans left stunned around the nation after watching Damar Hamlin collapse on the field. It's that kind of medical training we're looking to see if our local schools and athletic facilities are capable of. Mickey Cuevas was a secretary here for a decade. It was about 5 years ago when she went into sudden cardiac arrest while sitting right here at the desk.
Sitting in the same spot I was sitting in.
For long-term survivor Michael Broadway, he says he was kicked out of the Navy for being gay and began spiraling from there.
I found out on my mom's birthday that I was HIV positive.
I was the drunk driver.
David Hale was paralyzed from the chest down at the age of 16, but now he aims to pay every surviving day of his life forward as a substance abuse counselor and motivational speaker.
Later on, that would save my life.
It's a true survival story of April 20th, 1999, and all the years to follow for Craig Scott.
I share about being in the middle of the Columbine shooting, and there was 10 students killed around me, and losing my sister, and going from a really broken place to becoming whole again.
This is Dr. WLOX, Superintendent. Congratulations for being #1. Y'all did it.
That's #1 in the state overall. After landing on the bottom of Coast Academics for the last decade, not only are these cats back on their feet, but they're climbing.
Set! Moving!
Officers working on their approach, responding to a hypothetical school shooter, edging closer and closer inside Waveland Elementary. Gulfport High School is locked down on the daily, with strict access through the doors, live camera monitoring, and instant radio communication. But as students saw on Wednesday, it's not impossible for someone to report to class armed. Officials say finding yesterday's gun on campus only emphasizes the need. You can't win if you don't play, but even if you don't hit those winning digits, you're still helping fund some pretty important things. Checks are already cashing behind the scenes. Tirsa Boney and Margie Young are teachers at Pecan Park Elementary and card holders of the Mississippi Department of Education's Education Enhancement Fund.
Kind of looks like a debit card. This year it had about $672.
It's graduation season, and today many are strutting their caps and gowns. This is a look at the University of Southern Mississippi's ceremony just hours ago. We're taking a look back tonight at some of his handlers' favorite moments with the pup as he served Pascagoula. It was late last July when he and his canine partner Exo were tracking over a mile through the woods for an armed man on the run. He said it was Exo who found their suspect, but in this case with far less than a reward. Prysock says the gunman fatally shot the pup twice in the chest.
All of our canines get this attached to us. And that's probably why it was so hard, because Exo was the same way.
The necropsy was performed on the beach yesterday, but now tissue, organs, and other samples are on their way to federal labs across the country for even more testing. Dr. Moby Solangi with the Institute of Marine Mammal Studies says the whale that washed up in the pass is an endangered species, the first of its kind ever seen here in Mississippi.
These are top predators. Their health indicates the health of the environment.
Between the two Gulfport groups, dozens of Kemp's Ridley sea turtles are being nursed back to health after being caught stranded in freezing Massachusetts waters. Adam Kennedy is the director of the New England Aquarium Sea Turtle Hospital in Boston.
Really what we see, a lot of them look like they're dead.
As the aquarium reaches its capacity, Kennedy and his team ship the turtles out to warmer partners across the country. The New England Aquarium has helped save 394 sea turtles so far this season. That's including the Mississippi 70. Like years past, Madrigal is seeing different types of pneumonia among the turtles, as well as visible frostbite and more. This is also the case over at the Mississippi Aquarium, where veterinarian Sean Perry says they're nursing 40.
These are endangered species that we need to be stewards for and make sure they're here for generations to come.
IMMS President Moby Solangi says if he can help save one Kemp's Ridley, it's worth it.
It's helping restore the species. It almost became extinct.
Blake Steinwinder from Biloxi enjoys one unique hobby: climbing trees. He was trained on the job as a tree trimmer.
I was kind of like a meerkat. I would find the biggest, tallest pine tree and just go up there and I would sit in these trees.
A bird's eye view above the canopy. He got a call to save a cat stuck in a tree for 6 days. That was 2 years ago, and since then, he's rescued 17 across the coast.
Hi, honey. You'd be surprised of how many cats get stuck in trees.
While retrieving the animal may be the right thing to do, it's also risky business.
If we can get to the cat and we can help, we absolutely will try. But there's times when the cat is just too high up in a tree.
Sullivan says he welcomes the assist from professionals like that tree guy and other climbers. But remember, safety first. If you don't have the training, you're encouraged to call someone who does.
Lettuce looks good.
From mammals to reptiles and more, he says birds are one of his favorite animals to work with. Birds of prey. You're looking at a barred owl that fell from its nest and broke its leg. Before Dr. Askew can repair the protected bird with surgery, he must first get federal approval by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. As for this hawk's broken wing, a sling will do.
This guy's eye at some point in time had so much damage it just deflated.
They say thank you every time, and then they take off.
Back to where they belong, thanks to newfound support under their wings. For the 100-yard dash or fast cat, dogs are averaging between 20 and 32 miles per hour. It's a first fast cat experience for this Chinese crested powder puff, Nix. When 17-year-old LB was called into her principal's office for what she refers to as an unexpected warning. She was told as a transgender student and biological male, she must adhere to the boys' dress code for graduation. According to school policy, her only requirement left to graduate was to wear a white button-down shirt, a tie, and black pants.
My daughter identifies as female every day of her life.
LB's mom says school staff has always been supportive of her feminine attire. That was until Superintendent Mitchell King ordered the dress code be strictly enforced this year.
He also said the kids needed to have on their Sunday's best. How is her wearing her dress not her Sunday's best?
Me going to graduation would be me telling them that it's okay, and it's not. My graduation is the start of a new life, a better life.
Our comfort zone is a warm, fuzzy blanket.
Meanwhile, at the ceremony Saturday night, some students were pulled right from the lineup just moments before receiving their diplomas.
This is something that she achieved, that she worked hard for. She tells her that she could take her pants off and walk the stage, but she needed white shoes. So she could walk in her underwear, but she can't walk in pants.
Her family members outraged that they weren't told during rehearsals.
She's been here since 4 o'clock. Why didn't nobody say anything? I traveled 800 miles to come see her graduate.
We reached out to Superintendent King. He replied with these 11 words. In part, we followed the policy. Harrison Central High Principal Kelly Fuller did not attend the ceremony. District leaders tell us she was away for family obligations. As for LB, she says she'll never stop fighting for what she feels is right. Harrison County schools are back in session tomorrow, but with new rules in place regarding their attire. Now, this comes after the district made national headlines during its graduation ceremony back in May. Here are a few of these new guidelines that apply to this upcoming school year. This is for all elementary, middle, and high school students. Both boys and girls must dress consistently with their biological sex, the gender stated in your child's permanent school records. Also, Superintendent Mitchell King, he declined our several requests to speak about these changes.
Our voices will be heard.
Debbie Craig says she was in college when Roe v. Wade passed. Now, more than 50 years later, she's standing to defend it.
I'm so thankful, that we have men and women in Jackson who are fighting, for the rights of the unborn.
Dan Carr, past president of the Harrison County Republican Club, stands for the other side.
Right now, our facilities just can't compete with neighboring districts.
He says the funds would be used for a new football stadium entrance, a locker room for visitors, 2 new concession stands, and new bathrooms. But it's not only an athletic bond. The plan also includes 72 new classrooms and will expand on the district's current STEM program.
I've always supported bonds. This one I have some questions about.
Some homeowners like Charles Smith are concerned about the 20-year tax increase associated with the bond. Inside the Pascagoula Central Fire Station, the halls are dark, the floors crack, and the ceilings bear it all.
It hasn't been renovated upstairs ever in my career or
beyond my career. One day, hopefully, we'll get it.
With House Bill 42, county leaders are requesting authorization for the sheriff and his deputies to use radar detectors to catch speeders. It's a request they make year after year. So why is it not being granted?
Don't know.
What kind of dump is this?
James Wright is one of several long-term residents at Cabana Courtyard now told to pack up and move out within 30 days.
And where are we going to go? We got people in here with kids.
They were going to have to do something about the apartment complex, but we didn't think that they were going to do something like this.
I have mold so bad in my bathroom walls that mushrooms are growing.
Community Development Director Jerry Krill says their job is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of all residents. Feces and urine began flooding their apartments.
And it was devastating.
Mayor Casey Vaughn arrived on the property around 6 o'clock the next evening. The issue still ongoing nearly 24 hours later.
I saw the tenants with their own buckets getting sewage out.
Someone even was washing their kid and all of a sudden that sewage started coming out into the tub.
Residents and the mayor both say the property managers are not answering them. Ellen Maxime with the management team sent this statement saying in part, when managing over 3,000 apartment homes, from time to time there are maintenance needs, including plumbing issues. Out of the 14 stores the undercover miner shopped for vapes and alcohol, Mickey's is one of only 3 refusing to sell.
When you don't have a valid ID, don't expect to come in here.
Every day there's probably 6 or 7 minors that come in here and try to buy from us.
Madison Troglin is a cashier at Valero on Memorial Boulevard, the second store passing the test. As the juvenile investigator racks up with illegal purchases at other places, 6 cashiers are cited for selling the minor vapes, while 5 are cited for selling alcohol. All 11 soon due in court.
I feel good and I can move again. Then I can come to work.
But for County Deputy Clerk Lauren Gore, she tells me she's a recovered addict and one now advocating against kratom.
That same 2-3 minute drive turns into a 2-hour drive.
People who live near the Coast Coliseum, like Thomas Smith, are pretty accustomed to planning their schedules around the venue's events. Shooting on location in Waveland Thursday, Convergence Entertainment is filming Armored.
We are so blessed to be able to be working right now.
Tens of thousands of industry workers are currently fighting for better pay, more job security, a limit on the use of artificial intelligence, and more. Neighbors nearby say living in the shadow of these industries puts their health in jeopardy. Last week, the odor reached more parts of the city, with complaints pouring in.
Every one of these folks have been contacted. They're our representatives.
Barbara Weckesser lives on Cherokee Drive, close by the large industrial plants that have also called Pascagoula home for decades. Steps away from jobs the industries create and the pollution the neighbors dread. Residents fighting decades for cleaner air.
There's that smell again.
Calls ringing in at the State Department of Environmental Quality.
When we get the volume of complaints that we did this time, we knew something was going on, and we're still investigating exactly what happened.
MDEQ Executive Director Chris Wells says his agency took 600 readings in over 60 locations, still unable to track down the source.
Chevron Refinery is the facility that we believe was having the issue this time.
I visited Chevron to find out what's being done at the industry level.
In this case, we began the air monitoring. We found that there were no detection of those chemicals that we monitor. Still need to work on the nuisance side of it.
But Weckesser and Hamby worry the odor is more than a nuisance. Now supplied with door hangers and tablets, the residents are preparing to survey their own neighborhood in hopes of getting state and local buy-in for a property buyout.
It's important to us that we take our cues from folks who've actually lived in these neighborhoods and have had to bear the brunt of these environmental impacts.
The pollution that the community is experiencing is accumulating over the decades.
We always have an eye tearing and skin irritation.
It's not as bad as it was. The dust is, but we still getting the fumes. Over the years, I've developed some type of, which I thought was hives or allergies to something, but I started itching.
We don't stay outside very often anymore.
Now, the Cherokee Concerned Citizens taking action against the EPA. The neighbors are now petitioning the U.S. Court of Appeals to review the EPA's 2022 consent order authorizing Chevron to use pyrolysis oil. That's the process of converting recyclable plastic waste into reusable gas and fuel. 18 new chemicals Chevron has been authorized to produce and sell since last November. Environmental attorney Catherine O'Brien claims the production process will pose a cancer risk for nearby residents 250 150,000 times higher than what the EPA itself deems unreasonable. WLOX connected with EPA officials who declined to speak on the matter. Chevron says in part, the claim is based on EPA's initial risk screening, which was taken out of context and doesn't reflect how it would actually be done.
If Chevron or EPA, more importantly, felt that there was inadequate information to characterize the risk, it should have ordered more testing. This is not a community that can take additional toxic pollution.
I see light at the end of the tunnel for residents.
Kind of puts it into perspective.
I can't find the words for it.
What we do is dangerous sometimes.
Only 3 days have passed since their fellow EMT and friend, John Crow, died on duty.
Pray with me.
On the courthouse steps in the heart of Bay St. Louis, a community still reeling from a weekend of terror following a mass shooting at a prom after party. Loved ones are saying their goodbyes and memorializing the spot where 16-year-olds Bailey Bolin and Chloe Taylor died. The two were driving when officials say they crashed into an embankment and a tree. Family members sharing these photos of the two close friends, and these homecoming pictures were taken Saturday, just hours before they died.
I just notice a numbness right now, and it's hard to describe.
The school community lost 2 other students last spring.
There's been a lot of loss that these students have had to process.
While working a full-time job in education, this budding businesswoman is also jump-starting her own candy line. These 3 powerlifters are going to the 2022 Special Olympics USA Games. Family and friends keeping the news a surprise until this moment. They're now the first females from Mississippi to be sent to the U.S. Games. Elizabeth Simpson is an 8th grader at Our Lady Academy, an all-girls private school in Bay St. Louis. She's also the state runner-up for the National Spelling Bee. One Mississippi author celebrated the launch of her new book with readers. Jocelyn Lane is a licensed therapist and relationship expert. Those attending the launch party were able to meet Lane and get their copies signed personally. To Wilda Marshall, her children came first, putting them through school before she ever took the chance.
I always felt like something was missing. I made sure that my children was fine, raising them as a single parent.
But at the young age of 69 and about 6 years into retirement, learning would become her newfound hobby. And on Friday, she walked the stage. In fact, she snagged a number of awards along her way.
Wilda Elizabeth Marshall.
So many emotions was going on with me. It was like, is this really happening to me? It fulfilled my life.